Sign it gold, digger. The sharp words echoed through the candlelit dining room, freezing 30 of our closest family members in place. It was our rehearsal dinner, less than 12 hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, and my fiancé's mother had just slammed a 50-page prenuptial agreement directly onto my dinner plate. Everyone expected me to burst into tears or run out crying. My own attorney whispered in my ear, begging me to step outside. But I didn't flinch. I turned to my fiancé, waiting for him to defend me, but he just stared helplessly at his lap. So I picked up the pen. I didn't just sign it. I added a single handwritten clause right at the bottom before sliding it back across the table. His family smirked, convinced they'd stripped me of everything. They had no idea that by forcing my hand, they had just triggered a hidden legal trap that would bankrupt their family empire by morning. Follow my story to the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Clara Sterling. At 31 years old, I was proud of the life I had built. I had spent nearly a decade pouring every drop of my energy into building my own landscape architecture firm from scratch. Through long hours, relentless sacrifice, and sheer grit, I turned a modest solo operation into a thriving, multi-million-dollar business. I didn't rely on inheritance, family connections, or handouts. Everything I owned was earned. When I met Julian, I truly believed I had found my equal. He was handsome, attentive, and hailed from old money, a family whose surname was plastered across historical buildings, private country clubs, and luxury real estate developments throughout the city. But on the eve of our wedding, inside the private dining hall of an exclusive waterfront club, the refined facade completely shattered. The room was filled with gentle violin music, flickering candles, and 30 of our closest family members and friends. We were halfway through the champagne toasts when Julian's mother, Victoria, sharply tapped her crystal glass with a silver spoon. The room fell into an attentive silence as she stood up, her cold, calculating eyes locking onto me like a predator. She didn't offer a toast or a warm welcome to the family. Instead, she reached into her designer briefcase, pulled out a thick, 50-page legal document, and slammed it onto my plate with a heavy thud. Sign it, gold digger. Victoria sneered, her tone dripping with venom. We know why you worked your way into my son's life. You think you're going to trap Julian, marry into our bloodline, and leech off our family fortune, but that ends right now. A wave of shocked gasps rippled through the dining room. My heart pounded against my ribs, but I kept my posture straight and my face entirely impassive. Victoria leaned over the table, her hands resting beside my plate. If you don't sign every single page of this prenuptial agreement right now, in front of everyone here, the wedding tomorrow morning is officially canceled. You will walk away with nothing. A suffocating quiet fell over the room, so absolute that the hum of the air conditioner sounded like a roar. Slowly, I turned my head toward Julian. I looked into the eyes of the man I was supposed to pledge my life to, waiting for him to stand up, take my hand, and tell his mother she had crossed a line. But Julian wouldn't even meet my eyes. He sat there staring fixedly at his silk napkin, his shoulders hunched, completely shrinking under his mother's overbearing presence. In that single, agonizing second, the illusion vanished. He wasn't a partner. He was a spineless boy terrified of losing his trust fund. Sitting 2 seats away was Arthur, my longtime corporate attorney and a close family friend whom I had invited as a guest. Sensing the trap, Arthur rose quietly, stepped over to my chair, and picked up the heavy document. His eyes rapidly scanned the dense, aggressive legal jargon. Leaning close to my ear, Arthur whispered, "Clara, do not touch that pen. This isn't a standard agreement. They've structured this so that if the marriage ever dissolves, your personal business assets, including your architecture firm, get absorbed into their corporate umbrella as liquidated damages. It's a total ambush." My blood ran cold, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of tears. A sudden, crystal-clear calm washed over me. I looked at Victoria's triumphant smirk, at Julian's cowardice, and at his relatives watching like hawks. They thought they had cornered a desperate bride. They had no idea who they were actually dealing with. Instead of dropping the pen or running out of the room, I picked up the heavy silver ballpoint from the tablecloth. Victoria chuckled softly under her breath, her eyes sparkling with arrogant satisfaction. She truly believed she had broken my spirit, that I was so desperate to marry into her pristine elite family that I would happily sign away my life's work just to keep the ring on my finger. I turned to the final signature page, pausing right above the dotted line reserved for my name. With steady hands and total composure, I began writing a precise, tightly worded paragraph directly onto the official parchment in neat block letters. Arthur stood behind me, his eyes widening as he recognized the brilliant legal maneuver I was executing. I added a strict, non-negotiable indemnification addendum. This agreement strictly insulates all personal and corporate assets of the undersigned from any undisclosed liabilities, pre-existing institutional debts, or defaulted financial obligations incurred by the secondary party prior to the date of execution. I signed my name cleanly beneath the new text, then slid the heavy document across the white tablecloth directly to Victoria and Julian. "If this document is going to stand up in court," I said, my voice smooth and unwavering, "you both need to initial my handwritten edition right now." Victoria scoffed, dismissing my written note without even bothering to read the legal phrasing. Eager to seal what she believed was my complete surrender, she scribbled her initials next to my handwriting and forcefully handed the pen to Julian, who blindly followed suit. They raised their crystal glasses to toast their ruthless victory, completely oblivious to the legal landmine they had just stepped on. By midnight, the rehearsal dinner had concluded, but I wasn't sleeping. While Julian slept soundly in his hotel suite across town, completely oblivious, I sat at my home desk alongside Arthur. Spread out across the mahogany table were the comprehensive financial disclosures attached to the back of the prenup packet, documents Victoria's high-priced legal team had been legally forced to attach, assuming I would be too emotional to ever review them. Arthur's gold pen traced down the long columns of figures, and with every page we flipped, a sinister truth began to surface. The grand Sterling Vanderbilt family empire was nothing more than a hollow, decaying shell. Their luxury real estate developments were failing across the country, losing millions of dollars every single quarter. To maintain their opulent lifestyle and fake public image, they had taken on tens of millions of dollars in aggressive, high-interest corporate loans, using their core properties as collateral. They were drowning in unpayable debt, facing forced liquidation, and standing weeks away from total public bankruptcy. Suddenly, the ambush at dinner made sickening sense. They weren't trying to protect their vast wealth from a gold digger. They were setting up a calculated financial execution. They knew my landscape architecture firm was entirely debt-free and held pristine, top-tier credit. Their plan was to legally tie my business to their portfolio through the marriage, using my company's clean valuation as leverage to secure new lines of credit to bail out their sinking empire. They were going to bleed my business dry to save themselves. The morning of the wedding arrived with clear skies and warm sunshine. Down at the seaside chapel, 200 wealthy guests, business partners, and reporters filled the oak pews, eagerly anticipating a high society spectacle. In the bridal suite, Victoria paced back and forth in a custom designer gown, sipping champagne, thoroughly convinced she had secured her family's financial survival. When the heavy chapel doors swung open, however, I didn't step out in a white lace wedding dress. Instead, I walked down the aisle wearing a crisp, tailored navy suit. The organ music abruptly cut out, and hushed murmurs spread through the crowd as I walked past the shocked faces of the guests, holding my head high. Julian stood at the altar, turning deathly pale as I stopped directly in front of him. Without saying a single word, I reached down, pulled off the massive diamond engagement ring, and dropped it into his hand. I turned to Victoria, who was staring at me in pure disbelief, and handed her a certified legal notice freshly drawn up by Arthur that morning. Thanks to the handwritten clause she had arrogantly initialed the night before, my firm was completely insulated from their debts, and all joint financial agreements were legally severed before the marriage could occur. Even better, the clause triggered an immediate mandatory disclosure to their primary creditors. Their lenders had already been notified that the asset merger was canceled, instantly triggering a full call-in on the massive loans they had secured using our wedding as collateral. I looked Victoria straight in the eye and said, "The wedding is off." Chaos erupted inside the chapel before I even made it out to the courtyard. Victoria's face drained of all color as she read the notice, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Within moments, her lead attorney practically burst through the chapel doors, pale with terror, confirming the nightmare. The handwritten clause they had dismissively initialed had sealed their fate. Without my multi-million-dollar architecture firm to back their plummeting credit rating, the emergency loan extensions they relied on collapsed instantly. By noon, their primary lenders initiated an emergency freeze on all of Victoria's corporate bank accounts. What followed over the next month was a swift, brutal public destruction. News of the sudden loan default triggered a comprehensive federal audit into their family holdings, uncovering years of fraudulent accounting, tax evasion, and predatory schemes. To avoid criminal prosecution, Victoria was forced to put their historical family estate and personal luxury vehicles up for immediate emergency liquidation at pennies on the dollar. Julian, stripped of his trust fund and completely incapable of handling real-world hardship, was left penniless, buried under a mountain of personal debt. Meanwhile, my architecture firm remained completely untouched and protected, continuing to grow and thrive stronger than ever. Standing on the coastal cliffs months later, watching the waves crash against the rocks, I knew that standing my ground was the best decision I ever made. They tried to intimidate me, break my spirit, and steal everything I had built, but my dignity was never for sale. Never let anyone diminish your worth or manipulate your success. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were handed a prenup like that at your own rehearsal dinner? Would you have walked away or stayed to fight back? Comment your thoughts below and let me know which city you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Thank you for watching.